Hey folks, welcome back to the ChittMont Life. With humble obeisance to Lord Vishnu, let's start our second part in the series of Garud Puran. And today we are going to be discussing departure of the soul from the body. Before I get started, I would request you all to kindly use your common sense wherein needed, because there might be a few typos in this English translated version of the Garud Puran. I would try to correct myself whenever there is a mistake there, a typo sort of mistake. 90% of the work I believe is accurate, but wherever there is a need of self-understanding, we'll do that. And as usual, I'll be transparent with you guys. Whatever terms I'll not understand, I'll Google them out, whether it is Hindi, Sanskrit or English. And I would request you all to also pause the video and Google out the meaning if you are not understanding anything, because just reading without understanding the meaning is a waste of time. So with that said, let's get started. So we come to our first chapter here after the introduction. So departure of the soul from the body. Long, long ago in the Naimisharanya region, the high sages like Shaunak and others had started a yajna together, lasting for about 1,000 years, so that they could get a birth in heaven. In that region had also come Sutaji, who was quite honorably welcomed by the sages present there. Sutaji was an expert in reciting various mythological tales, and he had a long experience. Having welcomed him, the sages asked Sutaji, "Please describe to us about the creation, the gods, and the realm of Yama, and which good or bad deeds lead a man to catch which forms in the next life." Sutaji said, "Narayan Vishnu is the sole doer, creator of this creation. He is Narayan because he dwells in water. Nava equals to water, Ayan equals to dwelling place. He is the Lord of Lakshmi, having repeatedly incarnated himself to destroy iniquity on the earth and redeemed it from the sinners. It was he who incarnated himself as Ram to redeem the sages and seers from the tyranny inflicted on them by King Ravan of Lanka. He was incarnated as Lord Narsimha to slay Hiranyakashyap and redeem the earth. It is this Lord Supreme Vishnu who is the primal creator, sustainer and its destroyer in his dreadful Rudra form. In his Varaha boar incarnation, he slayed Hiranyaksh to redeem the earth. He had also incarnated in the form of the fish. Sage Vedvyasa is also born out of his partial grace that authored all the Purans. If Lord Vishnu is the best tree in this world, its root is righteous faith. The Vedas are its branches, the various Yagyas are its flowers, and the final salvation is its fruit. So, ultimately it is Lord Vishnu who is the final bestower of all reward, of all worship, and even the final salvation. Then recounting a story, Sutaji said, "Once Goddess Parvati asked her spouse, Lord Rudra, Shiva, that even when he himself was a supreme lord of this world, in whose worship he remained ever engrossed. After all, who is that Lord Supreme whom you worship?" "I worship Lord Vishnu. He is sole Lord of this entire creation, who is also ever revered by various other gods and sages." The same question when asked by Shaunak and other sages, Sutaji said, "Lord Vishnu is the sole base of this entire universe." This precisely was the answer that Lord Shiva gave to Parvati. It is Lord Vishnu, the Lord Supreme, who incarnated in various forms, viz. Narsimha, Ram, Krishna, etc., to protect the righteous faith on this earth. In the form of Lord Ram, he destroyed the demons. As Lord Krishna, he destroyed those with wicked mentality. As Varaha, he redeemed the earth, and as Narsimha, while protecting his devotee Prahlad's life, he had destroyed Hiranyakashyap. It is to him that I owe reverence, closing my eyes. Hearing these details about Lord Vishnu's greatness, bearing the authority from Lord Shiva himself, the assembled sages became all the more curious. They asked Sutaji, "Sir, whatever you have told about Lord Vishnu is merely dispeller of all fears. But tell us about the afflictions and agonies that trouble the being in this realm and the next. Please tell us in detail about the way to the Lord of Death, Yama. What sort of tortures the beings are subjected to in his realm? Getting the question, Sutaji said, "Well, now I will tell you all that I have heard Lord Narayan enlightening Garuda in this context." Then Sutaji started narrating. The way to Yama's realm is highly inaccessible and difficult to explain. Yet, for your knowledge, I attempt to describe it. Once Garuda had asked Lord Vishnu, "O Lord, even when it is easy to chant your name, still men deprive themselves from it and eventually reach hell. Devotion to you is open through many avenues to be covered with a variety of paces, as you once told me. But at present, what I want to know from you is that what sort of the way the one deprived of your grace has to travel? What problems will they face in traversing that path? Please tell me in detail as to what fate the one deprived of your devotion faces." Lord Vishnu said, "Garuda, now I will tell you the way to Yama as you have asked me. It is by traversing this path that the accured beings reach the realm of Yama. The description is horrendous. They fall into hell, those who are self-conceited, violent and arrogant due to their wealth and position. They invariably develop demonic tendencies and eventually fall into hell. Those who are infatuated with sensual and mundane pleasures and forget God also fall into hell. But those who stay to redeem themselves by donating alms are spared from this fall. But the sinners and evildoers suffer torture while going to the realm of Yama. Now, I will describe to you the grip the sinners suffer in this world and the next, following their death. A man enjoys good or bad consequences in accordance with the good and bad deeds that he had committed in the previous life. He suffers some dreadful afflictions owing the remainder to the effect of his bad deeds committed in the previous life. Agony and the fear of a calamity befalling him keeps him on the tenterhooks. Such a man, even though becoming agonyless in his youth and well served by his sons and wife, suddenly confronts death in the form of a snake, which bites him to cause his end. Even if he survives death, he passes his old age almost listlessly. He has his hunger waning, which too remains insatiable by the food that the house owner may throw before him, as stale food is thrown before the dogs. Soon, that fellow would have his vocal cords obstructed by a rampant phlegm in his body. His bones ache and it becomes difficult for him to move about. A wheezing sound is constantly heard in his voice. Due to the waning consciousness, he remains lying on the bed thinking about his life. Even though surrounded by his kith and kin, death keeps on approaching him. His sensual powers grow very dim and he even fails to respond when accosted. This way, keeping his thoughts concentrated on his family, welfare and not on God, he dies amidst the loud wailing of his family members and friends. O Garuda, exactly at the time of death, a man develops divine vision like the gods. At that time, he sees the world thoroughly instinct with Lord Almighty and becomes incapable of speaking. The waning sensual powers turn an animate being into an inanimate being. It is the time the messengers of death approach him. When the 5 basic elements depart to their present sources, the man feels as if a second is passing in a century's time. He suffers the agony as though he is being bitten by 100 scorpions. When he beholds the messengers of death before him, out of sheer fright, he starts oozing saliva and froth from his mouth. Since many sinners have their mouth passage obstructed, their life also escapes from the body through the anus way. At the time life escapes from the body, he sees the messengers of death, reddened eyes with anger, huge and weird mouth, carrying a staff and a noose in their hands. Their hair is loose. They have their horrible face and hands, with nails as big and sharp as though they carry an incisive weapon. Seeing such dreadful messengers, The dying man often passes stool and urine out of sheer fear. He cries in pain, but the messengers wrest a thumb-sized subtle body from the dying man's physique. But the subtle form keeps on gazing at its original form. Putting a noose round the subtle form and tightening it, they carry it away as though a king's soldiers are dragging away a criminal. Even while dragging it along, the messengers of death often threaten the subtle form of the dead person. Further frightening is that form with the airy hell that lies ahead for him. These messengers say, "O wicked soul, move fast, as you have to go to Yamalok. You have to stay in the dreadful hell like Kumbi Park and others, so you don't delay." Hearing these harsh words of the death messengers and the waiting cries of his near and dear, that being the dying man cries in uncontrollable pain, the messengers subject the subtle form into a variety of tortures and agonies. The messenger's constant threat break his morale as well. Sundering with pain and fear, that being moves along. He feels very thirsty and hungry, but he has to pass the scorching heat and walk over roasting sands. He doesn't get any shadow at all, not allowed to rest even for a second, but the messengers of death keep on whipping it mercilessly. He moves, falling repeatedly on the way. He faints and loses his consciousness, but move he must. This way he is taken to Yama's realm in about a couple of muhurats, small unit of time. Reaching the death realm, he remains there for a little period. He returns to the men's realm after getting permission from Yamraj. As he reaches the mortal world, he tries to re-enter his old body, but noosed by the messengers, he doesn't succeed. Then due to unbearable hunger and thirst, he cries and keeps on suffering the agony. His allowed diet is only the pindas and libation offered by his sons. So we'll see the meaning of libation and pindas here. So libation means it is a sort of food dedicated to the body of dead person. According to the Hindu belief, generally it is made of the cooked rice. The believed objective is that pindas provide strength to that subtle form to reach up to Yama's realm. Alright. So his allowed diet is only the pindas and libation offered by his sons, but remains thoroughly insatiated. On the contrary, a little food offered this way further whets his appetite all the more. The libations offered hardly quench his thirst. Those beings who don't receive post-mortem food in the form of pindas and libations, his way remain loitering in an airy jungle, hungry and thirsty. Unless the post-death ceremonies are duly performed, the soul remains hungry and thirsty for eons. "O Garuda," says Lord Vishnu, "Pindas is divided into 4 parts. 2 of them are meant for the consumption of the 5 basic elements which provide strength to the subtle form. The 3rd part is given to the death messengers, and the 4th part is given to that person's ghostly identity. This way, the Preta ghostly form of that person gets the Pinda for 9 days. On the 10th day, the Pinda Dan creates the full body of the ghostly man. On the 10th day, the Pinda Dan creates the full body of the ghost, which makes it movable. O best of the birds, even when that person's body is destroyed through incineration into subtle form, it gets a physical entity by the Pindas. It is with that little form that it has to suffer the consequences of its good and bad deeds committed in his life on the earth. Now I describe how the subtle body is created by consuming the Pindas. The Pindas of the first day forms the head of the subtle body. The second day, its neck and shoulder. Of the third day, its heart. The Pinda of the fourth day forms the back. Of the fifth day, the navel. Of the sixth day, the waist, anus, the organs and other limbs. The Pinda of the seventh day forms the bone, and that of the 8th and 9th day, thighs and feet. It is on the 10th day that the offering of the Pindas generates hunger and thirst in that body. So formed out of these Pindas, the subtle body becomes capable of partaking the food offered in the Shraddh on the 11th and 12th day of the death of that person. On the 13th day, tied in the noose of the death messengers like a Like a monkey in ropes held by its trainer, the being comes to this world in isolation. O Garuda, taking out the dimensions of the river Vaitarani, the realm of Yama spreads to 86,000 yojans. Now this subtle form of that dead person has to traverse the path at the rate of 247 yojans in every 24 hours. Now yojan means nearly 8 miles by the earthly units, so you can calculate how long this distance is. Alright, so where were we? Now this subtle form of that dead person has to traverse the path at the rate of 247 yojan in every 24 hours. In the company of those messengers of death, he has to pass through 16 halts or settlements on the way. They are Somyapura, Shaumipura, Nagendra, Bhavan, Gandharva, Shalagan, Karunch, Nurapura, Vichitra Bhavan, Dukha, Nama Kandapura, Supta Bhavan, Rudranagar, Yoyo Varshana, Shitadaya, and Behubhita. Beyond these lie Yamapura. This way lie in the Yama's noose, leaving all his kith and kin and his place. The sinner's soul traverses the path to Yama's realm. While moving on this way, the being has to suffer untold agonies, but he doesn't get any relief. All the time, he broods over his misdeeds and suffers grief, but surprisingly, having endured such pains and agonies, when he gets his next life, he again forgets God and indulges in bad deeds and evil actions. Alright, so that's all that I had for today in chapter number 1, Departure of the Soul from the Body. I hope that was a little informative to you guys. In my next video in the series, we'll discuss the Vaitarani river. Alright, so if you guys like what I'm doing, kindly support me by subscribing to my channel, and if possible, share it with your friends and family so that they are also educated enough about our long lost ancient knowledge. So that's all I have for today, and I'll see you in my next video of this series. Bye bye and take care. Good night everyone.